the politicians that are up on the podiums that you're following right now aren't telling you that we have a burning reason to bring your thoughts to the table, I don't know who else is a better reason than you. I personally have listened to a lot of great ideas that have come from the Politics Society. I'm a big fan of Jeffrey and Michelle. I've known them for a number of years, so it's an honor to be in front of you. What I'm here to do over the next hour or less is to try and help you bring the best of your ideas to the table. I've coached in many of these competitions, case competitions, in debates. I would love to see this move towards a debate format. And one of the things that becomes a little bit disappointing is sometimes the best ideas are never heard. The best presentation is heard. And sometimes the best presentation wins and not the best ideas. So I hope to walk you through what I think will work to bring your best ideas to the table so that people hear them and you can engage in a meaningful conversation. And with that, why don't we get started? Your whole idea here with the NYU Politics Society is to come up with something new and creative, correct? So, how many of you know who said this? The most dangerous phrase in the language is we've always done it this way. In my decades of experience, this is the hardest thing to fight against. And you're coming up with ideas that we've never heard of before. Last year's ideas were fantastic. But somebody who says this and tries to present it, do you think they're going to welcome it instantly? What's your gut feeling? You're in a bit of an uphill battle, right? So first let me introduce you to the person who came up with this. It's actually in JFK Terminal, JetBlue, if you've ever been there. Rear Admiral Grace Hopper. How many of you know her? Is somebody from Camden here? Camden School of Engineering? Oh my goodness. This is amazing grace. This is Gracie Hopper. There's the Gracie Hopper Day. There's an entire festival around Gracie Hopper. Take a look at her. Formidable, yes? What do you think she did that's so famous other than being the Rear Admiral of the US Navy? Any idea? She was part of the team that created COBOL, some of the first programming language. And that was her expression. The most dangerous phrase is we've always done it that way. Can I tell you, being with academics, being with business people, we keep hearing that over and over again. So get the scene right. You're presenting a case. You're the top 100 out of 500. So you've obviously come up with something that's pretty creative and interesting, right? You passed that first. How are you going to get someone else to buy into your idea? So let me ask you this. How many of you would like to win the case competition? Okay, so now we've got something to work towards, right? And if you want to win, then you've got to come up with a way of getting this in front of people so that they understand it immediately, that they accept it and they want it. By the way, these slides will be available to you as well as the video for your other team members. So how do we do it? Here's the task at hand. All communication, as far as I'm concerned, has to do with task, audience, intent, message. And it's constantly in a dynamic relationship, and it's constantly changing. So it's not just a matter of writing the memo, it's not just a matter of doing your slide deck and getting up there and going, let me tell you everything I know about this policy. It's reading the judges, engaging with them, so when they ask questions, you can show your best thinking on your feet. In our graduate program here, the number one thing students tell me constantly is we don't know how to think on our feet. I said, well, do you know how to think? Do you know how to have a conversation? Do you know how to have a date with someone? Do you have a conversation when you have a date? It's the same thing. You're reacting to someone. I'm looking at some of you that are looking at me like she looks a little green. I don't know what she's doing. I have this gentleman over here that's giving me the most beautiful smile in the world. I'm just going to go for him. You have to work these judges. So your task is right here. Rethink policies. Don't give me something that I've seen before, right? Rethink them means you don't just change them for the sake of changing them. You don't just turn them upside down, right? You've actually rethought them. And that's part of the message you're going to do when you do your presentation. So follow the instructions that came to you. Rethink the policies dealing with current major issues. So do you think you're going to have to explain that it's a current major issue? Now I'm going to take issue with something that was sent to you before. Don't change anything, you have to stay in the same category. Well, if you're doing your slides in April, and you make it to the finals on May 1st, and something happened between April and May 1st to impact your policy, do you think you're gonna have to respond to it? Yes, yes, okay? Because this is a current major issue. So be prepared for that. And you don't need to have a slide to prepare it. If you're having a conversation, can you have a conversation with someone and say, hey, look, the rules have changed, right? Think of how many major events are happening on a daily basis that we live with right now. So that's the ticket to really, I think, winning this competition. You stay current. You stay current on those issues, not just from your policy point of view, but you stay current with what's going to come back to you and say, wait a minute, what if they object to this part of the policy? You want to start smart. You want to be able to say, this has changed since we wrote it, and we have an answer for it. So, it's current major issues. Challenge your creative and critical thinking to come up with real-world solutions. So here's part of what I saw didn't work last year. These real-world solutions that people came up with were very often not, in my mind, fictitious. And we were sitting there going, how the heck is this going to work? So if it's not realistic, if you're pipe dreaming, I encourage you to do the blue sky thinking, but you also have to make it realistic. And very often that blue sky thinking can be long-term versus short-term. So don't be afraid to phase out your thinking of a policy. That makes you look realistic and makes it easy to grasp onto. So our idea is maybe a 30-year plan, but we need to get through the first 5 to really see if it's going to work, and we're prepared to adjust it. So think that through, and then impact the current discussion of these issues. Who's saying what to whom? Right now, what's the #1 issue in the US presidential race that keeps coming up? Well, maybe there are 3, but we're all students.
Wall Street.
Wall Street, well, what's the issue? Wall Street's a street. I'm going to give you a hard, is it okay if I push back on you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to really look at the language you're using. So when you say to me Wall Street, what's the issue?
Campaign finance reform.
Campaign finance reform, that's an issue. What else is an issue? Bernie Sanders talks about it all the time.
The income inequality.
Income inequality, what's the real issue behind it?
Is income inequality a zero-sum game, fundamentally? Does someone profit at the expense of someone else?
That's an issue. Does someone profit at the expense of someone else? Someone over here had, what?
Immigration.
What's the issue? That's a topic. I'm looking for an issue.
Flow of...
Help them out. Somebody help them out. What's the immigration issue?
Refugees coming into the country as well as immigrants coming from other countries around.
There's refugees coming in. There's brain drain, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't there a brain drain happening as well? Where's the intelligence going? What's another issue that affects all of you?
Rising price of universities.
Affordable education. Can we make education affordable? Here at NYU we have so many committees and I'm on one of them trying to figure out how to make affordable education. It's driving me crazy. I've got a model myself. I wish I were in the competition. I want to do affordable education based on an ex-im policy. Sounds a little nuts, right? But I think I could make a case for it. You have 15 minutes to get all of these huge issues into a format that you're in a discussion with the judges, okay? So what can you do in 15 minutes? You're not going to data dump. You're not going to, I'm going to say it again, don't data dump, because you're going to lose the opportunity of the Q&A. And most ideas, you know when they're sold? Is when I look at you, I see your passion, I see that you, do you really care about your issue?
Yeah.
Good, I want to see that. The only person I'm seeing that really cares about their issue is my friendly face back here. He looks like he's into anything I'm talking about. And there, I'm seeing another one. You look like you care about your issue, right? That's part of your presentation. You've got to put some of that passion and commitment on the line along with your intellect. If you just put the intellect on the line, it's not going to win, all right? So that's what I'm here to talk to you about, and I think we can structure it. So in the first 60 seconds, this is what you need to do. Give them a reason to listen. Now most of the judges, I'm sure, are going to care about the issue, but what's the reason they should listen to you? You've got to put that out in real words. And the one thing you're never going to say is, this afternoon we're going to talk about, because you're up there talking already. So please eliminate that from your vocabulary. And then I'm going to give Michelle a hard time. You're never going to say to the judges, you guys, or to the audience, you guys, because what have you just done? You've alienated half your audience, right? So that's okay, Michelle, we love you. So what I'm trying to say is this is the opportunity for you to ratchet up your thinking and your articulation, because you're going to have to sell your idea. And you need to give them a reason right up front. You need to preview your solution. Now this is the hardest thing for students to learn, because in academia, what do you usually do? What kind of reasoning? Oh, he's going to recover, come on.
Yes, the scientific, kind of start at
Keep
the problem.
going, it's
and
not
then
kind
go-
of, you're right on target.
Start at the problem and then finally finish with the end.
Right,
Solution.
so what am I going to tell you to do for this presentation? Reverse that order. And that is what's so difficult. Can you get comfortable in the first 60 seconds giving your solution? That's a tall task, and you should spend a lot of time on it, because you're going to start at the finish and you're going to repeat it. So here's another fun fact. People need to hear something 4 times before they remember it. If I were to ask you, how did I start this presentation, do any of you remember? Don't worry, it's not a test. Do you?
The book,
What the, okay, but do you know what the quote was?
Oh, yeah.
You got it.
The most, paraphrase, the most dangerous thing we ever heard is that's how we always did it.
Oh, good for him. Excellent. Thank you. But the odds of anybody really remembering that are very small. So I want to give you a reason to listen to me. And the reason to listen is, what's the one question I asked you that gave you a reason? I asked you if you wanted to win. Is that a reason to listen? And I've been there before and I've judged before. The other thing is, you need to show your commitment. So when I look at you, I want to see it. I want to see it in your body. I want to see your brain come on fire, that this is something you really believe in. And don't be afraid of it. I'm not saying to be an actor. Something quite different. I'm not saying to memorize. But the more you can show your real commitment to this issue and why you're here and why you care about it, that's going to work for you. So let's take a few previews. Do any of you know Dr. Kwame? If you were to read this quote, this could preview an entire presentation that could last an entire day. The right of a people to decide their own destiny, to make their way in freedom, is not to be measured by the yardstick of color or degree of social development. It is an inalienable right. Who led a movement in South Africa. Every one of those words, well chosen, can preview everything he believes in. Yes?
Just to be clear, I mean absolutely no disrespect to the moon, but just the word inalienable, doesn't that word imply, in the sense that it implies, because when you use the word inalienable, what do you define as inalienable? It's a very normative kind of style of thinking.
So tell me your concern.
No, it's extremely normative, it's not very much based in fact, but rather something like how the world should be run.
Okay, so let's go to South Africa. Apartheid. Do you know anything about South Africa and apartheid? Do you know the abuse? Slavery? Would it matter if I said 3 million people have been abused, half of them have been maimed? If I give you the facts, but they have a right to an education, they have a right to food, and they have a right to live.
Well, in my opinion, I think that would be strong, because maybe I'm more mathematical scientific, but I'm not saying apartheid was good or anything. I'm just saying I think would it be better to show some sort of hard fact, 1.5 million people were beat up by slave owners, or 300,000 people died of starvation.
But the point of an inalienable right, does it matter whether it was my point was, does it matter whether it was 1.5 million, 2 people, or 1 person? So I get where you're going, and I am what they call in my department, I'm a data evidence fanatic.
Right.
I love an important number. But if there's an emotion, if there's something that's going to drive people and give them a reason to listen, you don't always need the number.
Okay.
That's kind of my point.
Okay.
And when you look at context, and depending upon the policy that you're addressing, don't eliminate the potential for appealing to something that you may call normative. I may say is going for the common denominator that everyone's entitled to. And I can bring the fact later. So if I were writing this, right, the typical paragraph that I would write, I usually say it, explain it, detail it, say it again. If I had 4 sentences, but my detail is going to come in the 3rd sentence. In some cases, if you're talking about water, if you're talking about climate control, that fact might be the most important thing you bring up. The most important thing you bring up is not that some people don't have water, but that there will be water for anyone. Let me give you the fact that proves it. Okay? But put in context, and when we look at these subjects, put in context what you're dealing with, and you're trying to give this judge a reason to listen to you. If you can summarize your entire presentation in 1 line, you've got them. And that's where I'm going with this. And I want to give you an opportunity to try it today, but let me give you a couple of other people that we're looking at. Why are people listening to the Pope these days? When we know the Catholic Church is being attacked from a million different angles because of everything that's going on, but they're looking to Pope Francis. There's a reason to listen. You've got all the Catholics that want to figure out how to get out of this mess, and you've got a Pope that's going for a common denominator. So look at some of the things he says. A little bit of mercy makes the world less cold and more just. That's powerful words that you can sit and talk about, and you can have a conversation. It's appealing to an emotion. If you're doing a presentation, it can't just be all about logos. It's ethos and pathos. And the ethos comes from your own belief in the policy that you're defending. So don't be afraid. Students say to me all the time, what do you mean ethos? Where's my credibility? I say your credibility comes from who you are and why you're even interested in the subject to begin with. Don't be afraid to refer to it. Don't be afraid of that personal story coming into your presentation. But you only have 15 minutes. So if you make the whole thing your personal story, guess what? It ain't gonna work, right? Here's another one. I'm sure you all know this story. I come from a country that was created at midnight when I almost died. It was just after midday. Powerful, powerful opening. The other power about having an opening that personally touches you, it gets your motivation up. If I were to get up here and say, there is a problem in Afghanistan today because women aren't receiving an education and many of them are being tortured before they go to school. Am I capturing your interest? Am I really pulling you into it? Some people might not even know where Afghanistan is. What I'm trying to say is a little bit of this is what all these presentations need. And what I saw last year and the year before is there wasn't enough of this. Okay? People started off with, thank you for having us, it's good to be here. Today I'm going to talk about a policy on education. Well, you've already just wasted 7 seconds, right? Rather than saying, education needs this now. Boom, and go right into it. So that's the kind of discipline I think you need to put into your presentations. Are you with me, Jeffrey? Because I'm looking at you thinking. All right. So this is what these quotes all have in common. What else do they have? They have a reason to listen, they have the passion of the speaker, commitment to move forward, and a charge for change. All of that needs to be in your first minute. And it also has to be in your first minute credibly. It can't be a dramatic moment. So if you practice that dramatic moment, you lose your ethos. Okay? It has to fit you. So I'm reading your language already, and some of your challenging language, and I'm saying you are ready. I can see where your pathos is coming. You could use that to show your credibility by not being afraid to say, I'm a person that questions, And this is where my question is. And I'm a person that believes in facts, and here are the facts. But I need to see it without hitting me in the head, okay? Okay, and no one today, our team is going to talk about, please, please, please don't do that. Okay, so here are our topics, and I'd like you to try your turn right now at your table. Coming up with that, if you had to come up with that one sentence, what would that one sentence be that would give the judges a reason to listen? So the other thing I need to know is, Michelle or Jeffrey, the judges, give me a preview of who these judges are. Why would they be interested in listening to any of these subjects? You don't have to tell me specifically, but tell me how you even recruited them and brought them into this process.
So usually on your panel, one judge is a professor, one judge is working at a think tank, one judge is a policymaker, and one judge is from some sort of journalist or magazine, newspaper organization. So you have to cater to all of their views. The professor will be academically oriented, so you have some technical data questions, they will make sure that you get those right. The journalist will have a view on the media, how the world will react to your proposals, while the policymaker and the think tank people will be very careful with the nuances of your proposal, so they'll know all the ideas you guys will be talking about.
And the professor will also be very annoyed if you put up a lot of data and you don't explain it. The professor will also be very annoyed if you put up graphs and charts and you don't have your axes properly labeled. The professor will be very annoyed if you don't have sources on your graphs. This professor will be extremely annoyed if your data is very old and not current, and you can't explain why you particularly went to that source. So if I get up there and I say, recently, all the major consulting firms believe that education has to be turned upside down, but there's only one consulting firm that I'm really looking at to provide credible data. And it's not McKinsey and it's not Accenture. I should be able to explain that to you. And the professor will ask questions like that. Where did you get that data? Why did you get it? Why do you think it's important? You have to be able to tell that story. That adds to your credibility, okay? What do you think the journalist is interested in? Yes?
Reporting on the issue, whether it's biased or not, like
Possibly.
one-sidedness. Also, they probably have personal views on the issue.
Personal views on the issue, because the journalist has probably written about the issue before. And you might be coming up with an issue or a policy presentation that he has the opposite view on, and guess what? He may have done a lot of research. So how do you handle an audience member like that? What do you think you do? What would you do? What would you do?
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm
I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but what would you do?
I would just say this is what I believe in. This is the facts A, B, and C, and this is why I believe in what I believe in because of X, Y, Z, etc., etc.
Okay, but we haven't really engaged him, have we? We've just heard you repeat what you believe in. What would you do with the journalist?
Well, I think beforehand it's really important to kind of look at any counter arguments that can come up, and that way you're prepared for like the counters what you're saying.
Perfect. You want to know the counter arguments. You may want to do a little homework and find out if he has or she has written about any of these subjects. And the other thing you want to do is engage this person.